like to report out on the closed session. It was moved by Trustee Del Rey, seconded by Trustee McAllister, and carried unanimously 4-0. Trustee Roma Flores is not present. By roll call vote to appoint Tiffany Daugherty as the new Healdsburg Elementary School principal. Ms. Daugherty, are you here?
Yeah, Ms. Daugherty is here. So this is Tiffany.
Step up,
and Tiffany, if you have anything you want to say, I just want to say how pleased we are to have you. You can step up to the mic. You can keep your mask on. You don't have to take it off. But yeah. So
now. So when you saw me in the future, you could recognize me. How about that? Well, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that the board does. I know that being a board member is not a glamorous job, right? But it does mean that you really love your community and the children in it. So I appreciate the time that you spend. And thank you so much for your trust in me as well. I've been an educator for 27 years. I was a teacher for 14 and then a principal for about the last 13. Most recently in a little town called Eagle, Colorado, which is right between Vail and Aspen. So I'm super excited to move into the future with Healdsburg Elementary School and collaborative leadership. So thank you.
thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. And I would also like to acknowledge Principal Jeff Franey, who is literally in his last 2 days, starting tomorrow as principal at HES. And Jeff, thank you for everything you've done. It has been a ride the last few years, and we really appreciate your steady hand through all of the pandemic. So thank you for your leadership, Jeff.
Yes. Okay, adjustments to the agenda. I believe we have one. Item 10.3.f, I believe.
It's 10.3.g. We are pulling from consent. Yeah. So 10.3g will be pulled from consent. So.
Yes. Okay. No objections to that? Okay.
And what will be done with it? It'll be pushed
It's
up to another
tabled to
meeting?
a future meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And now the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. And Franny Whitcomb, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd like to call on Superintendent Van Uvel at this point for special recognition. 2021-2022 retirees.
All right. I'm not super pleased, actually. We're losing a lot of good people this year to retirement. But I am pleased to honor them and the work that they have done on behalf of our students and families in the community. I'm actually going to start us off with a number of folks that I've worked closely with, and then we will have principals and supervisors come up to talk about some of the people retiring from their site. So I'm going to call people up one at a time just to talk about them and acknowledge them. So I want to start with, you know what, and I forgot to actually make this announcement. Si necesitan traducción en español, pueden conseguir un aparato ahí atrás en la mesa y tenemos un intérprete que va a estar interpretando todo en español para que puedan comprender. Sorry about that, that I forgot. So I would like to start with Arturo Hurtado. Arturo, can you come on up? Come on up here. So Arturo has been a custodian in the district for 17 years. He worked at the high school. He worked as the lead custodian at the junior high at Fitch, and then became kind of a district-wide custodian over the last few years. And an incredibly hard worker. And I just want to acknowledge, especially these last 2.5 years, Arturo, the work that you have done with your colleagues in custodial to keep us all safe in the cleaning and making sure that the campuses were safe, first for teachers to be on so they could teach the kids remotely, and then when the kids came back, it just made school possible. So thank you for all you did for our kids and for your 17 years of service here in Healdsburg. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Next up, Terry Pagney. Terry, come on up here. You don't give me that look. Yeah. We have missed Terry this year. He's been on leave for the year for some good reasons. And Terry hasn't been here long. He's been in the district 7 years, but he has been revolutionary in the CASA program. So Mr. Pagney took a program that we were working hard to implement, and we had some good years before he came, but he took it to a whole new level. My own son got to learn construction from Terry, and he, whether it was working on a tiny house, the teardrop trailers that you guys made, the coolers, that they sold as a fundraiser, dog houses that were donated to the Humane Society. Kids had a blast in that class and learned at the same time. And one of the really best things he did was he was one of the trailblazers in the county for starting a carpentry apprenticeship program after school through the North Coast Builders Exchange. And he did that at Healdsburg High using our facility. And kids would come as they were graduating from high school after school and become apprentices and literally get $25, $26 an hour jobs right after high school because of the skills Terry was teaching them. And it's now a model program throughout the county. So we are super sad to lose Terry, but he's not going to just disappear. We have a new teacher in CASA, Todd Sheehy, and I think we already got him roped in for some hours. But Terry, thank you for everything you've done, and it has been just a really pleasure getting to know you, honestly. You're a great person and you're a better teacher. So thank you. Yeah. And then we have Linda Cameron. Linda, come on up. Linda and I have worked very closely for the last 12 years, so we know each other well and fondly, I think. Yeah. I'm sure I upset you back. Yeah. So, but no, she's been fantastic, and when I got to the Healdsburg High School in 2010, I was coming from outside there. I didn't know anything, and Linda was like the resident historian. She could tell you everything about what had been, how we do things, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know actually all the positions you had in the district. 26 years in Healdsburg Unified. Started as a library tech at HES, was a registrar, office assistant, student welfare and attendance, HR tech. Ended as a registrar at the high school. Came back out of retirement just not so long ago because we hired a new registrar who needed help. And so she came and, well, actually we were between, so she saved us while we didn't have anybody and then helped the new person. So Linda, that's the thing with Linda, she's always willing to chip in and serve. And through this whole time, she's been a parent and continues to be very active on the boosters for the high school sports programs. So you will see her at games in the snack shack at football games and basketball games. Linda's not going away, and really, honestly, you're a hound through and through, I think. So we really appreciate everything you've done, Linda, for the kids, and I have loved getting to know you over the years and talking about your grandkids in Sweden and everything else. So we miss you already because she retired in August, but we wanted to have her back to recognize her. So thanks, Linda. Yeah. All right, so I am going to call up Erica McGuire, who is going to talk about Karen Bronder Reynolds.
You want to stand up, Karen? Yeah. I can talk about you. So I am, like Chris said, happy to be here, but not happy to be losing Karen. She is just a phenomenal person, teacher, member of our team at FMC. I thought 33 years, but I just heard her say outside it's been 34 years in the district. She started as a PE teacher. She taught my husband, and he has fond memories of her and refuses to call her anything but Mrs. Reynolds all these years later. Yes, yeah. But it's that sort of respect and that the memories that that students have of her that is going to be really missed. As a veteran teacher, she embraces change. She is first to get on board to try something new and to do well or to fail. And she has been an incredible mentor, not fail, but, be open to change and that growth mindset that we want our students to have. She's been an incredible mentor to new teachers and her teaching partner over the last couple of years. If you walk into her classroom, it's a well-oiled machine, but kids know what to do and where to do it, but they also know that they are loved and cared for by her. I'm going to miss her personally. She's somebody that I go to for problem solving or looking at something. She has a real strategic way of thinking about things and logistics. So I'm going to miss bouncing things off of her. I'm going to end on this. So I sat down with a couple of her students and I was frantically taking notes and trying to capture everything they said. So I'm going to read what they said to me. She's really nice. She teaches us very good things. She keeps us safe. She tells us how to be kind. She helps us get along with our classmates. She does fun things for us. She plans stuff for the class, like good lessons and stuff we need to know. She gives us a good education. She does fun activities like the summer writing activity. She's very respectful. She's very understanding, like when we leave our book at home. She brings us books from home to read to us. She teaches about her family and how to treat someone with autism. And my favorite, she makes us feel like we can do hard work and like we've got it. So, congratulations, Karen. Miss you.
I'm very excited.
And this means, Scott, I'm not going to know what's going on with you anymore because I won't talk to your mom about you. Scott was my student in high school. So anyway. All right, next up we have Amy Jones-Kerr, who's going to come up and talk about two folks retiring from her site.
Thank you. I'm going to begin with Miss Atwood. Can you please come up here, Jamie? Jamie came to HHS with a wealth of knowledge and experience. And through talking to colleagues and students, she has brought so much forward that she's learned throughout her career. Jamie is a teenage person. She gets teenagers, which is really important when you work with high school students. My favorite thing, what do you call them? She thinks she never grew up. You call them little, what do you always say, Miss Atwood? I was trying to brainstorm what you were calling, but anyways, she has this little thing that she says them little people or young, gentle people. Good morning, gentle people. And let's begin, gentle people. And it sets the tone. And Jamie's just gifted in so many areas. Her data analysis, her love for analyzing data, which is something we needed her for. And what she's done with the math department and adopting curriculum this year and taking students, 30 students to Model UN this year? A lot of teenagers for a couple days. I kept seeing all these cute pictures of teenagers and like, poor Miss Atwood. Okay. She loved it. And she was the department chair and just did a phenomenal job. And we just wish you all the best. And one thing really great too that she started this year is with one of her students to work at the junior high to help mentor and work with a newcomer. And so it's been very successful, and that's something that we hope to keep going. Yes. So thank you, Miss Atwood, and congratulations. Oh. All right. Our next employee is Dave Stein. What I can say about Dave is Dave comes to work every single day with a smile on his face, a positive attitude. He's professional. He's efficient. And I know I was new this year, and we sat down and did goal setting. And we said, gosh, what should we work on? And he put together a whole manual I didn't know he was retiring, so this was really good. And he put together a whole manual for a new person to come in, and he had it done early. And what's special also about Dave is not only the efficiency with numbers and checks, but he works with parents, with ticket sales. He works with staff, and he's really good with teenagers. So I just really appreciate you, Dave. You've done a phenomenal job, and we'll really, really miss you. And we're excited about your new adventure.
We have one final retiree to recognize. She's not here tonight, but Diane Conger is going to come up and talk about Kathy Klein.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry Kathy couldn't join us today, but she had a prior engagement. I could go on and on really about Kathy. She has so many wonderful qualities, and but I think what makes me know she'll be okay in retirement is I feel like she lives a life like she's already retired. You know what I mean? She travels, she learns new languages, she's got this like lifelong love of learning, but she's going to be sorely missed. She's a big part, especially for students who have speech and language needs and families with students who struggle in that area. She's bilingual, so she makes everyone feel comfortable, and I've never been in an IEP meeting that parents feel better about leaving it. She's fantastic, and she'll be sorely missed. And I just wish her wonderful travels. And she's learning Italian now. I think she learned French a couple years ago. So she's going to have a great life.
Before we go to the next one, could I ask all the retirees to please stand up so we recognize you? Excellent. Thank you all so much. Where's the cake?
Karen loves for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Superintendent.
All right, we have another recognition. This is for Annie. Annie Peterson is our student trustee. This will be your last meeting with us, unless you really want to come back in June after you've graduated. You're more than welcome to. But Annie, you have done an incredible job this year. I think you have the biggest smile of any student trustee we've ever had. So thank you for that. You have a can-do, kind of embracing any challenge attitude, which we've all appreciated. And you haven't shied away about voicing your opinion on certain topics, which is good. That's why we have a trustee from the students, so that we can hear your voice and your colleagues, your fellow students' voice. And you've done a great job. And so really appreciate your spirited updates on everything going on in the schools. And wish you all the best. Annie will be going off to the University, or Kansas University. Is that how you say it? University of Kansas? Kansas State. My bad. Miss Atwood, is she still here? No, she left. That's good. She's from Kansas, not Kansas State. So you guys are rivals. But yeah, so Annie's off to Kansas State studying ag law. Is that right? Yeah. And so, Annie, we wish you the best. We got you a little something as a token of our appreciation, and just thank you for your work this year. Does any of the trustees want to say anything about Annie?
Speaking up and suggesting that we kind of had one trustee mentor or student trustee, then I got the job. And but it's been a pleasure. I mean, it's been a weird year. We didn't really kind of start doing this till January, but I've been trying to meet with Annie or talk on the phone before every meeting and kind of walk through things and see what's going on. And I have to say, I think she's been one of, if not the most proactive student trustee we've had, at least in the 10 years I've been on the board. And we even met yesterday and kind of did like a little exit interview kind of thing. And
That's
like,
awesome.
what do we think about moving forward? And how can we engage our student trustee more? And so I really appreciate the time you've taken to meet and do that and, take on the challenge. So thank you. And you have a great future ahead of you, without a doubt. So all the best.
With your Parley Pro background, you probably gave us some parliamentarian suggestions, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I would just like to second that, not about the mentoring, but listening. I made a couple suggestions and you said, oh, I did what Trustee Thomas said. You slowed down your speech a little bit. You gave us something to read. You gave me something to read anyway so I could follow you and hang on to it and remember. But also, I think more importantly is what the superintendent said, is that you were proactive in reaching out to your colleagues and to your fellow students and bringing that information to us. You weren't shy about it, and I know you're not shy. And I also, when at the scholarship night, I was very impressed that you were one of the nice students. You got that award, so and you are.
She won the nice scholarship.
She won the nice scholarship.
Awesome.
Yes, one of them. Yes, thank you, Annie. Right, moving on, public comments on non-agenda items. The public may address the board on any consent action item or item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, during this period, the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is 3 minutes per person. Do we have any persons? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next is 10. We have a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And remember, this is without 10.3G.
Yes, thank you.
Do I need to remove?
Seconded?
No, it's
No, it's already been pulled.
Okay.
Kathy seconded?
You may second it.
I second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. Say aye. All those opposed? No. It carries 5-0. Public comments on agenda items. Members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Your request to address the board will be heard at the time the item is being discussed. In accordance with Board Policy 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed a total of 3 minutes to address the board for a maximum of 20 minutes on each subject matter. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a toll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. We move on to 11.1, student learning, the library. Before I begin, I just want to make a comment. So I forgot to mention this. Director Fender is zooming in. I think you're there, and she may be joining us from time to time, just so y'all know.
Yeah, she'll have several reports.
Yes.
But I think I will be introducing Lorene Azevedo, who is our district librarian and library media teacher. She is here and has been working over the year to present a model district school library plan. So she's going to walk us through it.
Lorraine, can you make sure your mic is on?
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Should I start over? So when I approached the CASA department, I said, what can you do about that? If I'm thinking maybe a charging counter, is that something you guys could work on with the students? And they found a slab of redwood from the district, one of the district trees that had already been cured. And so we have a beautiful redwood charging counter because of Terry's leadership and Rob and the students. So just wanted to put that one in there too. So when I was hired by the previous superintendent, he was one of the people that was on my interview board. The ask of me was that they said they wanted a model school library program but they weren't exactly sure what that would look like. They would know it once they saw it, but they weren't sure how to get there. And so that was something I was happy to take on, and I pretty much watched as I worked for about a year before I undertook writing the first one. And we've put up there some of the accomplishments. The board approved that plan, and we didn't accomplish everything from it, but there's some great things on that list that, because of the support of the board, happened. One of those was a dedicated book budget. We were funded mostly on donations and fines, which was kind of an inherent conflict of interest on the fine part. So they were able to give us a dedicated book budget that we allocate on a per student basis. We were able to do the one card partnership with Sonoma County Libraries. We had in there working with community partners, and that happened. That took a few years. There's databases, there's a lot of things. We had a Wi-Fi hotspot checkout program long before the pandemic, just because of some of the inequities and how, as a one-to-one school, there wasn't always a way for people to get work done away from school because they didn't have enough internet access. So we started that hotspot program. So a lot of things like that happened, and we're happy about that. We're trending in the right direction, as I would say. But as you'll see on the next slide, I think we still have more work to do. We did this next plan, and it's been percolating for more than a year with me, with a lens for equity and access. Because you can have all the collection you want, but if people don't know how to access it, that's a problem. So some of those things deal with promotion, signage, but also it deals with personnel. Not all the schools have personnel on staff with their libraries open for the full school day. The position that I currently hold was to be based at the high school, but it's great for the high school people, but the staff at the other schools don't have the same access to a certificated teacher librarian, who I hold a credential in the ability to teach info literacy, digital literacy, all of those things that could be happening at an earlier age than they are, in a different way than they are. I'm not saying they're not happening, they could be richer. And the support for the library techs who aren't teacher librarians, they're wonderful, but we could all work more as a team. And so one of the things in the new plan is to consider allocating the positions so that it spends time each day of the week on a different campus. So that's one of the things in there. And some of the other things are about expanding the program beyond the walls of the library in various ways. It was obvious, I think, to all of us from the pandemic that some things just they're great in person, but it's also nice if you have access when you're not there. Or even just starting conversations around literacy or stories or research or intellectual property rights. And a lot of those things can happen in different ways outside the library walls, in virtual spaces such as databases, but also visible projects like book spine lockers, which could be a collaborative effort among students to nominate the books and make their cases for which books should be on the lockers. There's another program that I want to look into to get funding for that's a short story dispenser where students can walk up and choose a 1 minute or a 3 minute or a 5 minute short story, and it spits it out on a piece of paper about this wide. And it's curated for different ages, but it can also work with your own school's program to publish their works. So just things like that, different ways to bring libraries and literacy and things outside the room. The read alouds, which are already happening, but somewhat volunteer, I think. I'm correct in yes, in saying that they don't all happen on the paid hours. One of the things we're considering at the high school is roving reference and taking our carts out certain advertised days a week out to where the students are, because we want to reach not just the people that come into us, but the folks who don't. And so things like that are in the plan in various forms, maybe more generally stated, but and then one that we've already started at the high school and should be a continuing conversation is editing our collections and the catalog, the way collections are cataloged for bias. There was a section in the plan about that and how the Dewey's great for a number of reasons as far as a cataloging system. It's popular worldwide. It's not the only system, but at the time it was invented, there were some inherent inequities, and some of those show up in the catalog and the way that cataloging terms are now. And they don't change quickly, but they do try and change them. It doesn't happen quickly. So we're looking at how can we organize our collections so that they're more culturally responsive and not just filed like, for instance, the Native American creation stories under mythology. So rather than religion, like the Bible's creation stories and such. So those are some of the things in here, and I'll throw it over to you guys if you have questions.
No questions, but I really appreciate the time and thought that you put into this.
Yeah, this is very thorough and very thoughtful. I was particularly surprised at the average age of our collection of books at each of the campuses.
But it's better than it was when I first came.
Yes, it has improved. Well, I would hope it has improved, right?
Right.
But it's still, especially the high school.
Yeah.
Like, that's 13 years. No, 23, sorry.
Part of that is literature itself. Like some of the classics have older dates on them, but also when I did those, ran those reports, the fiction collections change more. They're more current just because we like to be responsive to what kids are requesting. But a lot of the materials, we're keeping the best of them, but it's until we can replace them. And we can't replace them at the rate that we weed them. If we were to weed them all just so it's more current, we would be missing some things that are probably still good, but not the best that we could have. So we target each year. We make a targeted buy, and the book budget, while it's great, is to have one, is about a third of the cost of what a new book is per student. So, and the recommendation is to keep collections current and relevant is to add a new book per student each year. That's a California school library, model school library standards that the state adopted. So at all grades except high school, that's one book every two students. So, which is one reason that we're asking for, for the district to find a way to bring that book budget up. And my suggestion was to bring it up gradually by 5,000 more each in the next 3 years, and that would bring it up almost to the price of a new book at the high school level, and it would bring it up to the cost of the K-8 level. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. Any other surprises or clarifications?
No, it's good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the
Appreciate
thought
all
and
the
time
work,
that you put
yes.
into it and
Thanks.
your leadership, especially.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And if there's any changes or things you'd like to see or data that you want, just shoot me an email, library@husd.com. It shoots to the top of my box.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I would encourage you to come back frequently to tell us what we need to do. And I am serious. Item 11.1B, Big Picture Learning. Principal Jones Kerr and team.
Yes. Hello. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Kay Rivers up to present the Marcy Becerra program. Just feel really honored to have a specialized program for students that need a different environment. So without further ado, she's going to share the wonderful things that are happening for our students on campus.
Kay, did the chicks hatch?
Yes.
All right.
One.
Yeah, the one came out. That's
one
great.
so far.
Yeah.
So first, I want to acknowledge before she leaves. Did she leave already? Laureen and Aaron have been super helpful in just all sorts of ways in supporting our program. Obviously, in addition to Amy. But I just wanted to start by saying that. And we have 2 Marcy Becerra kids or students here with us as well to support and just show how excited we are about this program. So in the picture, why are we here? We're here for the kids. We're here because of the students. So I wanted to really highlight them. So if you look up in the one corner, you can see the kids painting for Day of the Dead. And then community building with a great Jenga game. And to the lower right is exhibition. So that's a mentor who came in from the community who sat and listened to their exhibition, which is basically the summary of all that they've learned over the semester before, which we assign 2 credits as they need them. And that's just an example of a panel of the student presenting. And then the sort of selfie in the middle is the big picture folks. So Lauren has been our mentor. Tor is in the back behind me. He's my team teacher. And then Rose Hammock is our Native American Initiative representative who's been phenomenal teaching the kids basket weaving and traditional beading. And we've been going on nature walks, learning about native plants and indigenous uses for both ceremony and medicinal uses of the plants that we find here in Sonoma County. And then Holly, the one with the giant eyes, is also part of the Native American Initiative and part of Big Picture. So I just thought, just super briefly, Marcy Becerra, that is Marcy Becerra over there on the left. She is a native Pomo and Filipina educator. She spent more than 27 years teaching in Santa Rosa. So the program was named after her. In the past, it's my understanding that it was a program of packets and in essentially a bunch of portables that were kind of way off in a corner somewhere. And the kids didn't even eat lunch with the high school kids. Like, it was really, really separated. So one of the things I understand that Chris has really focused on is trying to integrate or at least provide the opportunity for our kids to know each other and because they already know each other, right? Most of them have grown up here, but this way they can still eat together, still participate in sports, still participate in clubs. And, an example of that, I'm a co-advisor for the GSA, for the Genders and Sexuality Alliance. I have to learn it because back in the day, I'm old enough for it to be the Gay Straight Alliance, which it is not anymore, right? We meet in my room. So Healdsburg High meets at Marcy Becerra for GSA. So that's basically where we came from, where we're headed. So we were named after a Native American person, which I think is amazing. But we were able to actually integrate that more into our program with Big Picture. And we already mentioned the beading and the basket weaving. You can see Rose there with some of our kids. We went on a nature walk, and we also went on a field trip to Cal Flora, where Rose took us around, and each of the kids chose a native plant to learn how to care for and to plant. And we actually just got approval from Rob, who I saw a minute ago, to actually plant a native garden in this field of weeds in front of my classroom. So we're working on that right now. We probably won't get it done until next year just because of how late it got approved. But we will have this native garden here, actually there on campus very soon. So here's again, I just love highlighting the kids. So we have two so it's all learning through interests. So the fundamental layout of the program is each kid has an individualized learning plan where based on how they envision themselves being, we call it wildly successful, in 5 years, what would that look like to them? So it could be, I have an apartment, I live on my own, I have a dog, like whatever it is, right? And then, what goals do you need to set in order to achieve, to be wildly successful in 5 years? And then what projects can you do now? So one is internships, where they will go to an internship on Tuesday and Thursday and not come to school. And then they come to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and their learning plan will reflect what it is they intend to learn in their internship or through their projects. And several examples, as Chris was asking, we had 22 eggs, and I just have to share a tiny bit about this. So behind it, you see that carton, that blue carton. I bought that at Safeway because I read on Facebook that you could hatch store-bought eggs, and I told the kids about it, and they're like, no way. I'm like, I know, I don't believe it's true either. They're like, well, I'm like, do you want to try it? And they're like, yeah. So science, right? So I found someone on Facebook to lend me their incubator, and she also just donated a dozen eggs. So we put 11 of the store-bought and 11 of the farm-raised eggs into the incubator. And just today, one of the store-bought ones hatched. The farm eggs still have not hatched, but one of it's blowing my mind. So anyway, yeah, so who knew, right? But that's science, right? Empirical reasoning, right? So we're, who knows, right? You never know unless you try. And so we have this, also the kids put together, so the three in the picture with the rabbit hutch, that's the hutch. We got a classroom pet of a rabbit, and they all learned, what is it we need for the rabbit? How often do you have to feed it? Like, how do you care for it? And so one of the things we really have a lot of, and I think part of it's because of COVID, and I think part of it's just the nature of the kids in continuation, is we have a very high level of kids with, we have 48% IEP or 504 right now. And a huge portion of that is anxiety, right? And so having this rabbit to pet and feel that very soft fur is just really relaxing and gently, a gentle way of having them feel safe and warm and loved in the classroom. So that's been really cool. So the 5 major focus areas for us, or all the things that they do, their internships, their projects, what they tell us in their exhibition focuses on these 5 areas and them telling us how they're meeting these goals. So, for example, personal care and development. One of our students trained with me during 6th period for a 5K, which we ran at, I jogged, he ran, for St. Patrick's Day, right? And raised money for Santa Rosa Parks and Rec. So that's just an example of personal care. Okay, so I realized when I was looking at this that I neglected to add this last data point, so I will share that with you now. But, are the videos going to show up? Yeah, maybe, can you click again? Oh yeah, here we go. So will it start or? Oh, okay. Well, I'll just tell you what's there then. It was kind of cool to see it, but so it's okay. So up in the left-hand corner is actually our Antonio back here, getting his certification to be a forklift driver. So that's him at his internship with the forklift. And then on the lower right-hand corner is another one of our students. She was working, her internship is at a horse ranch. And so it's too bad you can't see it. It's really adorable. Okay, is just a little goat, like a kid, almost dancing on her, and she's just giggling, and it's just adorable. So, so you can imagine. And then the upper right-hand corner is one of our students whose internship is at Eric's barbershop, and this is the haircut that he did on his brother. So that's his little brother, Adrian. And then the other part is the beginning of a basket that one of the students did. So just showing you how, I don't know, I just find it amazing. I don't know. Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. They're just tiny clips, so you get the idea. But thank you, but it's really okay. One thing I'm super proud of, or we're super proud of, is 70% of our students have internships, which I think is super amazing since I moved into my place the Friday before Thanksgiving, right? And to the area, or to, Petaluma in June. So I don't know anyone. I don't know any businesses. And Tor lives in Cloverdale, right? And has been here for 1 year longer than me. And Amy just started this year. So none of us, we're all trying to figure out who to connect who to whom. And I literally got a phone book that I had to explain to them what it does and how you use it, right? To look up local businesses, right? So I'm like, yes, you can use the internet. And there's this magic book you can use too, right? Finding places, connecting them, and that's been really great for, it's kind of like driving a taxi to get to know the town, right? That's kind of what it feels like. So very excited that 70%, even in this first year, my first year in this program, I think that's just phenomenal, and I'm very excited about that number. Another really thing that we're super proud of is our partnership with Santa Rosa Junior College. And we managed to get 5 students enrolled in the work experience class. And so they got 29 altogether, 29 college units already. So, we're a credit recovery program for high school. So they've been working in this sort of deficit for all this time. And so they get to start, if they choose to go to college, they're starting ahead, right? So what a lovely thing to leave with. So, and that also equates to 96 high school credits earned last semester. So it depends on how many hours they work, how much credit they get, and that's why it's variable. And then we doubled that this last semester and included more of my juniors and not just towards seniors. And then now it jumped up to 39. And then the number that I neglected to add there is 139.8. So almost 140 high school credits these 10 kids earn towards high school graduation. And so where are we going, right? So that's where we were, where we are now, and where we headed. So we want to continue developing our partnerships with Healdsburg High School. We are a separate school, and so, sort of creating our own identity and building community within our program, but also fostering relationships with the high school itself, other organizations that we could potentially have internships with, and also, very importantly, with families and just the greater Healdsburg community. And other big picture schools. Like one of the things that I really wanted to do this year, but it was just too much, is I would really love to get the advisors, so the teachers, together and share best practices from different schools all together, like a little mini conference. Because of COVID, it was challenging to do it this year, but I'm hoping that we can do something like that next year. And then just expand experiential learning, so internships, field trips. Just today, the kids were talking about EF tours. I took several groups of students in the past. This is my first year here, but I've taught for 25 years. And about 19 of them in continuation. So I've managed to take 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly, groups to Spain in the past of students, and they're expressing interest in that. So that's a potential possibility. And then also to really connect more with community service projects. We've been talking about maybe beach cleanup or creek cleanup, that type of thing. especially for those kids who don't have internships, that we would, take off on a Tuesday and Thursday and go clean a creek, right? And then just fine tuning our infrastructure. We're essentially creating this whole new entity, right? And so, the graduation requirements that I noticed on the agenda, Erin's going to address later. What we do in advisory, just sort of, I feel like that's an area I'm not as strong in that I would like to be. And then internship scheduling, and then our incredibly important liaison with special ed in Emily, who's amazing also. And, swag, right? Like I noticed that when I walked in, I'm a typical teacher, I have this, but you know what? It says Healdsburg High, and I don't teach at Healdsburg High, right? So I think it would be really great for the kids and the teachers, for all of us to have, this sort of Marcy Becerra swag, right? For our own pride and identity. So what questions do you have?
Awesome work.
I always have questions.
Thank you for sharing.
This is a great update. Thank you very much. And it's really wonderful to see the students thriving in the program and, coming and showing up. Thank you for being here to support. Mike and I both were able to go to the graduation last year, which was distanced in COVID and odd, but still one of the most moving and beautiful things ever. So, just amazing work being done. I'm curious about how are we doing in serving students who are interested in the program? Do we have additional students who we think would be a good fit in the program? Are we interested at all in expanding the program? Like where?
We're working on process on that right now. So there's been a lot of discussion at the high school about what it should be as we build it up, because there is a little bit of the word out, right? And it's also, there's a fine line that you don't always want to encourage students to go to continuation, right? Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of discussion around it happening right now.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, yeah, it is. I have to say, as somebody, coming from a really traditional educational background, it takes a while to wrap your mind around this and around the program and what it does and how it works. But that said, I do really strongly believe that there are a group of students who this is so perfect for.
Absolutely.
And it's something we can't lose sight of. And
the fact that there's a buzz speaks to the incredible work that Kay and Tor are doing and what the kids are doing in the program. So
exactly. So I don't know, as a board, or kind of what the next step is in what the future of the program looks like, but it's an important conversation.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Outstanding. Thank you.
I am going to leave at this point. The board knows. For the first time since the 1950s, we are hosting a home playoff game at Rec Park for the baseball team, and my son is playing. So they've been gracious enough to allow me to go watch. So,
And report.
And I will definitely hear back and watch the board meeting. So thank you. I'll send you updates.
Nice. Go Hounds. (11.1C) Board Policy Regulation 6146.1 High School Graduation Requirements. I believe Erin Fender, Director of
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
How's our volume?
That's
or my
good.
volume?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. I'm not shouting at you. Thank you for making accommodation for me to be with you remotely. And I just wanted to, it is a little bit heartbreaking for me not to be there in person, to thank Lorena Acevedo for the library plan and to thank the Big Picture Learning team in person. These folks work tirelessly to ensure the growth and just continuous improvement of our program. So thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Kay, Tor, for presenting tonight. And I'm sorry I can't be there to give you a pat on the back myself. This agenda item regarding graduation requirements is related to what we just heard from Dr. Rivers. We've got a couple of overarching changes generally for HUSD, and then specifically related to the Marcy Becerra graduation requirements. So probably be helpful. I apologize for not making a slide, but would be good to have the cover sheet in front of you. This walks you through what the revisions are in the actual board policy. So the first page there in red in the policy is clarifying the differences between HHS graduation requirements and A to G requirements. We are a district that is committed to ensuring that all students have access to application to a four-year university right after high school. And so we've made changes to the actual graduation requirements. You'll see the strike through below there in black. We had tried a petition. After putting that into practice, it felt that it was not the best way to go about making sure that all students and their families are aware of what the requirements are, and when they were in danger of not meeting the requirements to make an application to a four-year university. So we're clarifying some of that language and ultimately our process. So you'll see also in the administrative regulation, there's an addition in red in the AR that directs us as administrators to contact families at the end of each semester when they receive a D or an F, and then to host an informational session in the late winter, early spring of each year to make sure that families are aware of what the requirements are. So that then would make the petition unnecessary, and honestly was not a process that was working. So I'm going to pause there. I can't see you guys. I have a black screen, so I'm going to make sure as I go through this that there aren't any questions about that one.
Erin, this is Donna. I really like the clarifications. It just reads well and makes a lot of sense. I had a question about, is there any plans to put this information on the website, the high school website, in addition to the parent information session? And, you know, I mean, just, I don't know. Does that make sense? Is there a point where parents would go to the website to look at information like, you know, answering questions about how does my kid get into college kind of thing?
Yeah, it is in the student handbook and then in the section in the counselors tab under HHS. But you bring up a good point that we could probably do a better job. You know, right now this information is buried in existing documents.
Right.
So you'd have to go to the counseling page. You would have to go into the student handbook, go in, existing documents. So it's a good recommendation to maybe elevate this information on the website.
I mean, I even feel like from a, like a positive, like this is what we're doing at the high school is really amazing, right? That we have the A to G requirements, that it's an assumed thing unless you opt out. And then there's all these wonderful alternatives if you do opt out for, getting that through your math. I mean, it's a really powerful message, not just in response to a parent asking a question, but in terms of our strategy with the high school. And we're seeing the results, of course, with the high percentage of kids doing this. So anyway, that's a kind of a different discussion, I guess, but I feel like, I don't know, there's something more here that's really powerful. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good point, and I'll be following up with high school administration and counselors on that. Thank you. So trying to move us along here, the next change in the graduation requirements has to do with adding a section from Ed Code that honestly should have been in here all along. It's a paragraph that reads about students earning coursework for exactly what Dr. Rivers was describing, when students take SRJC classes, when they complete an internship. So that is added and is in EdCode. This is not something that we dreamt up in HUSD, but when students earn credit at a post-secondary institution, when they are part of a supervised work experience, that they should be able to earn credit. So that is included in there. And that is true for all students, not just Marcy-Becerra students, but obviously for HHS students as well. So let's dig in on the changes to Marcy-Becerra. You can see we're seeing the fruits of our labor in big picture learning. Under incredibly challenging circumstances of pandemic and fires, our students are getting out there and learning. And these changes were brought to Amy Jones-Kerr, the principal, and I by the teachers and by the counselors. So this is not necessarily something that administrators came up with, but this is from the people who work most closely with our students at Marcy-Becerra and responding to their needs, what's working for them, and making this request as teachers and counselors. So the first is getting to 190 credits rather than 210. We did a survey of in the region of alternative and continuation schools. 190 puts us at 10 credits over what the norm is. 180 tends to be the norm in our region. Reminder that it's 130 is the baseline for graduation from high school. So going to 190 continues to hold the bar high for our students, but also with an understanding that the 210, as Dr. Rivers said, coming in largely credit deficient, does not necessarily set up students for success, and that we can do this in a better way. So 190. Moving on, going back to making the choice of career technical ed, visual performing arts, or a language other than English, rather than being an and prospect as it is for our high school students, but an or prospect. And part of that is just meeting students where they're at in continuation school. The other is allowing them to foster their interests. We have one student right now who's a senior who would like to be a translator for the court system. And so it might make sense for him to take not only one LOTE class, but multiple. So trying to respond to student interest, particularly through the big picture learning model. The next one, keep going in the document here, is, let me make sure I'm in the right place, is reduction of community service from 40 to 20 hours. As we saw, our students are learning in and from the community, but often the documentation that's required prior, they enter Marcy-Becerra when they're 11th graders. And so they may have had community service as a young student. They may have not, but requiring documentation for 20 hours of community service seems to be more in line with what we would want. And honestly, this is not a place that I worry as your director of curriculum and instruction that our students are going to be learning and working in and from the community. So reducing that requirement from 20 to 40 is the last bit there. So I understand it's a little difficult with me not being in the room. What we intend to do for this and all the items that I'm bringing forward tonight is putting them back. Generally we would put this on consent agenda if it pleases the board. What our thinking is that we would put this back on the agenda for not on the consent agenda, but rather as a approval, so we can have some more time to talk about it. It's not just going to go right on consent.
Erin, this is Donna again. I'm a little confused about, like, for the alternative education, it talks about completion of 190 credits for the class of 2023. So does this apply beyond 2023? If you could be clear in sort of the next version of this we see, that would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you, Karen, if you could catch that. It would be the class of 2023 and beyond. So thank you.
And the next section is about exemptions from district adopted requirements, and it really is retroactive and talks about 2021 and 21-22. So does that even still apply?
We need to have it in there. Yeah, we talked about that. The 2021, no, but we need to have the 22 in there because we're not done graduating students yet. So we're both, this is reflecting current practice as we finalize this school year. But both Tor and Kay will be working with our Marcy Becerra students through summer school. And we wanted to make sure that, these changes that the students and the teachers are looking at for the 23 school year are in place as they work in the summer, right? The summer is an important time for them to work on their individual learning plans. So the 2022 remains because the school year is not over. But we didn't want to wait to bring this forward until the fall because our students and teachers need to know what are the requirements as they head into their junior and senior year at Marcy Becerra.
So, but I'm a little confused because if we're not approving this tonight, then it won't apply for this year.
You would.
I thought it was in discussion.
Right. What's in only the items that are in red is what you would be changing. So any items that have to do with this academic year you'll notice there shouldn't be any in red.
Correct. Okay. I think okay.
So what's in black is currently in policy.
Right.
What in red is in red, we're asking for change for the next academic year.
Right.
And beyond.
Okay.
Erin, I think what Donna was saying is if we're not making this an action item till June, school will be done. So if we were to vote on it, then it would be for the 2023 class. So we could remove those.
Well, summer school. So we do have summer school running through August.
So it could apply, not retroactively, but kids late graduates. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And again, I'm happy to field any questions between now and the next board meeting. And we intend to bring this as an action item so we can have any more discussion, and not just throw it on consent. So, and if we're not feeling ready, we've got 2 board meetings in June as well. And if need be, we could wait until August to approve. I just feel more comfortable. And I think the teachers and students would like to get some indication as to whether this is headed towards passage or not. Any other questions or comments before I hand it over to Diane?
No, looks good. Thank you, Erin.
Erin, can I ask you just one question? I know that the volunteer hour requirement has changed due to COVID. So are we in the document we're stating that 20 hours are required for the 2022 class?
Correct.
Okay.
Eliminated.
Keeping it, but lowering the number of hours for the Marcy kids, students.
I'm cold. Okay.
I'm putting on my very professional jean jacket because I was cold too. Okay, well, let me go back one slide. Can you go backward just to the title slide? Yeah, there we go. So tonight I'm bringing forward the second iteration of the Climate and Social Emotional Learning Report Card. So, can you hear me?
Let's bring it up, I think so. There you go.
Better?
Yes.
Or I could yell. And I'm very excited to be doing this. It's sort of our infant year. We're growing this and we're growing the program and we're learning more about data and we're learning more about social emotional learning and screening and all sorts of things. And so I'm just I'll go to the next slide. Debbie? Let him. No? You're running the show tonight, Deb. So I'm just reminding the board that this work comes out of our June workshop, not like you forgot, but we did a lot of work and we did a lot of framing around the CASEL framework. And so this is just a reminder that the CASEL framework includes those 5 components. And so everything we do is sort of mapped to these 5 areas because they are evidence-based, research-driven components of social emotional learning and sort of mental health and student well-being. But in addition to doing this, we're also bringing forward some of our youth truth data from the survey that the kids took earlier it's winter really. I want to say spring, but it wasn't spring. And so I'm going to turn it over to the principals in a minute to talk about that. But before I do, I really want to set the foundation that, and I'm going to bring up a quote that I really like because it's from the CASEL co-founder, and he said, "Emotion drives attention, and attention drives learning. So everything we should do should have a social emotional learning component. Because if we don't have the kids' hearts, if we don't have them engaged, they're not going to learn. And we do know that kids don't learn from people that they don't care about and who care about them. So I legitimately believe this in all of my heart, that we cannot have good quality instruction without a social emotional component, without fantastic relationships, without paying attention to this. And it's never been more apparent to me than this year. So, and I think we all understand why. Next slide. So and I'm going to turn it over to the principals because they're really driving this work at their school site. I just hand them this stuff and then they make it happen in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. But this is the way that we had to quantify and find a way. It's not a perfect tool, but a way of sort of looking at a very complicated sets of data. So you also have this document. Yeah. So we're not, this is too difficult to read on a presentation format. So what we've done is we've taken parts of this data and we have highlighted that in the slide presentation that we're going to start. And I'm going to turn it over to the principals and we're going to go from littles to bigs. And then we'll all stay around in case you have any questions.
I'm actually 6'1", but. So, good evening, everyone. It's great to be back up here in front of you. So we can go ahead and jump into it. Is this thing working? Yeah, okay. So it's really nice to be able to see the direct correlation between the work that our teachers are doing with students around their social well-being and then their academic success. I'm not sure if they've gotten into it yet, but we're seeing growth in our student academic data that is pre-pandemic levels. And I think, and I know that it's a lot to do with the amount of effort, concerted effort that our teachers and staff are doing with our littles and all of our students in terms of all of these components, right? So really wanted to highlight, we're seeing 17% growth in self-management and self-awareness, social awareness increase, 15% increase in social problem solving. Now, granted, these are for 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And for them to be able to kind of start to understand their impact in a social situation is huge. Ongoing improvement, you see that all areas are improving in social awareness, self-management, social awareness. We're seeing increases in relationship skills as well. But you can never shy away from a 13% decrease in any data point, and I wanted to name that. That's the kind of data point that kind of sleeps under your pillow and keeps you up at night. I mean, we can sit here and kind of talk about why that is. But I think for me, the numbers are real. And so you take it, you own it, and you move forward with it. As a school site and as a district, I think that we are realigning our expectation of families before pandemic. We are and have been implementing policies that have been changing, that have been putting a lot of pressure on families, and I think that that shows up in our data as well. Next slide. Overall, at K2, this is our SEL web data. This is actually a really fascinating assessment to watch. It's a 30-minute assessment. You can break it up into 2 different sessions, but it has students move through a computer-based assessment that measures all of these things. So, for instance, self-control. What the component on the assessment is, it's a glitch. So it's designed not to move forward. And so it measures how frustrated a student will get when, if my phone doesn't work, if technology doesn't work, I get frustrated very fast. So it's very fascinating to kind of watch kids move through this assessment. But again, we're seeing double-digit overall growth, emotion recognition, social perspective taking, social problem solving, and self-control. All of these components are paramount to the overall well-being of not only a school site, but a classroom and an individual. So it's amazing to see little ones showing this much growth, especially after the hardships that we've all been going through in the last couple of years. So we have the data. What's next? So the next steps are, continuing to provide SEL lessons with Ruler, with some other tools that are SEL tools that our teachers have. They're doing a phenomenal job of incorporating not just one SEL component in their day, but they're weaving it throughout the course of their academic day as well. We're going to be continuing to work. I know that the incoming principal is amazing and is going to be working with our counselor to promote the availability of services for families. K2 does not have a youth truth student component at our level, so that's some of the work that we really want to know of, how students are engaging with the school site, with their school day, with their peers, with their teachers, that kind of thing. So that is some work that we're going to be doing with SCO as well. Of course, you have the data. It should inform and will inform instruction in the classrooms, both SEL and academic. It's always important to be coordinating services where we're seeing the problems. So, if we're seeing a lot of outbursts in classes, if we're seeing, behavior that's not necessarily conducive to a learning environment, we want to make sure that we're pouring our resources into making sure that, that stops. And then, of course, continuing to engage families. We can always do a better job of engaging families, not only in what the assessments we're using, like what is the assessment, but how is the data being used, what action items are being put in place, and getting input from our families in ways to make our school site a better place. Any questions?
Are you following students by cohort? In other words, this year's first graders, you'll see, hopefully, when they're assessed again following, they're looking at those same kids, not first grade, but first grade, same kids in second grade. Is that how this is?
I'm not sure if it's like that, but that's what we do with our academic data. So we kind of, and I would utilize the data in a similar way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So this year's first grade, so next year they'll be in second grade, and say, what, is there a difference? Is there the same? Is there growth? Is there recession? Whatever the word is. Okay, we're able to do that. No, I know that. I understand that. And look into the future.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. No.
Yeah, good point.
Well, yeah, this is good. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks,
I
like all the positive increases. That's great. And I also appreciate calling out the not so good. That's good.
Ditto what Jeff said. I'm kidding. So this is, but I will say, coming back this year, from COVID, and we knew we went into the year with a focus on SEL, also implementing for the first time our new social emotional curriculum, Ruler, rolling it out with students we spent last year, rolling it out with staff. So we knew it was going to be a focus, and it has been great. We've had the Youth Truth data, but comparing that, that is anonymous. It's grade level wide. But CellWeb, you can drill down into a classroom and see specific students and respond to those. So, we have work to do on using that data, but it has been a great start using it this year, or seeing the data this year. So you can see areas to highlight in self-awareness, 6% increase in our third grade, areas to watch again. As Jeff said, we have to point out and look at the areas that that stand out where we have work to continue to do in terms of self-control in fourth grade, and then that decrease of self-control in fifth grade. And just yesterday at our staff meeting, again, looking at responding to the data, I had a conversation with the fifth grade team about what that is, and looking at the data from the first time they took it in the spring to the fall, from the fall to the spring, and that change and what's happening in fifth grade right now. And so really wanting to respond to that. And then as well as that 19% decrease in social problem solving. And it's interesting because we see that right now. So the data reflects, it wasn't surprising for our teachers to see that because it reflects what they're seeing on campus. And so again, just hypothesizing, asking questions about the data, and reflecting on, our students being back in school, back with their peers. Fifth grade, always in spring, is an interesting time. It's like, they're like 10, 11 going on like 15, 16, I don't know. And then also, again, looking at the Youth Truth data and that decrease there in students, do you like to attend your class? But then in social awareness, which, we did focus a lot with Ruler, understanding and naming emotions. We spent a lot of time on that this year. So, wondering if that played a role in that. So it's, again, our first year looking at the data and reflecting on it and really trying to respond to the areas that we can highlight, and then also where we could have some growth. So again, overall, looking at the CellWeb data, we clearly want, and the Youth Truth data, we clearly want to get more of our students liking to attending their, responding positively to liking to attend their class and feeling safe at school. But we are also on the other side, on the CellWeb side, seeing those areas of that we can highlight in terms of emotional recognition and social perspective taking. So, as we look at this data, then some of the next steps, is just continue to look at that, the Ruler and the tools within Ruler, responding to, CellWeb has a great alignment with Ruler and looking at the lessons that match the areas of need, continuing to work with our counselors to provide services. Our mental health counselor this year did look at the CellWeb data, from the first assessment, looked at that data and then put together some groups that he's been working with based on the needs identified in the survey. So he has, in particular, I'm thinking of like a fifth grade boys group that he works with based on the CellWeb data. And so again, just doing more to respond and putting together, using the resources that we have with our counselor and other tools. And then also using the data just in the classroom. So again, the outside resources like our counselor, but also having our teachers respond to the needs of their classroom with the lessons that they provide in their SEL time. And then also kind of that second to the last is really important, is about, engaging students. Oftentimes we give students assessments and then we don't talk to them about it, both academic and social emotional. And so really going back and having those class conversations. So after Youth Truth, they did that, especially actually in all classes. I know fifth grade, they really did have conversations about it's anonymous, so who knows who responded in what way, but having conversations about what the questions were, what they meant, why they responded the way they did, not knowing how they specifically responded. But I think that's really important for fifth graders or for all of our students really, but to engage with the data and to know that it's being looked at and responded to, and that they could kind of have a say in the conversation moving forward. So again, a part of my plan, because sometimes we get this responses, but also sharing it out and taking time with staff to look at it. So my plan for next year is to really kind of come up with a plan for, we get, like Diane said, she sends us an email, we have to get this surveys done by our students, but really mapping that out so we make sure that we do spend time as a staff looking at it. So again, even not just for students, but for staff too, it's not just something that we gave because we had to do it. And so my plan for next year is just to really kind of dive into looking at the calendar and creating really time and space for looking at this information.
I just wanted to say thanks to both of the elementary principals. I just know how much work between Diane and yourselves went into taking this information, turning it into data that we could begin to look at and understand. And I love the emphasis that both of you had on responding to the data. I feel like, we sort of got this rolling when things were so not typical because we were in the middle of COVID and distance learning, and some students at school and some in distance learning, and just so much transition, and making these kind of generalized statements about their own student experience during that time just seemed like maybe it was more anomalous than it was useful. And it's really cool to see that, so quickly this year that all this hard work has turned into data that we can look at and really respond to. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for that.
Before you sit down, I absolutely second that. No, it's great, and I like that you went back to the students and said, let's talk about these questions and that. My one question, it kind of follows my previous question, is so this year's fifth graders, is that being passed on to the junior high school? This is what we're seeing in this year's fifth graders, so y'all know.
That's a good, I will
and the same with HESTU.
Yeah. I guess related, but I will, for the first time, I actually am having, because our teachers know our students really well. And I've often heard that we don't do a good job of that articulation when students go from one campus to another. And so I'm not sure. So Diane would have the answer about the data, because in terms of looking at the cell web responses, but we are, the fifth grade team right now at Fitch Mountain campus is basically writing a short narrative about every student that I will share, that's going to be shared with Chris Miller and the counselor. They can choose to do with what they will in terms of sharing it with teachers or not, but just respond, even, struggles with friendships or, just a very brief about every single student before they go to the junior high is what we're working on right now.
That's great. That's great.
I like Mike's question a lot, just because I think that I think I've thought often as we've talked about this, I've thought about it as sort of like campus initiatives, each student's in the groups talking about school culture. And of course, there's going to be students moving through all the time and moving on to the next campus. I think it does really beg a question of is there two ways of thinking about it? One is campus culture and kind of campus-wide initiatives, and then also sort of what's the long-term transitional goals for the students as they move through the campuses.
I think it's certainly not a problem to share the information, especially globally. I think our plan all along was to share the students who were most in need, share their individual data with the incoming counselor. So whereas I'd like to keep it somewhat anonymous, so kids come in with a bit of a clean slate, knowing that there are some students who need more strategic support, they'll get a report, they'll get an individual report that would be confidential with the counselor.
I think I guess I just think that it's cool to think about the students as a group. Like I understand the need for what you're talking about, but I feel like this data, the youth truth data and so on, is really more about kind of what's the general experience of everyone and how does that fit together as they kind of move through the grades and campuses.
Yeah.
And how much are the needs being met and the education happening consistently across those grade levels. You know, just the SEL supports and the classroom environment and their sense of school being a safe, happy place where they learn. I mean, I'm just so interested in these things of like, when I'm in class, I learn. You know, we really need to know, do they think they're learning when they're in class? Because they're the ones who know, right?
Well, the principals also, just so you know, have access to all the youth truth data.
Right.
So if they, and from previous years as well. So if Mr. Miller wanted to pull up data even from the elementary, well, you know, from the families from the elementary, he could. So it's very accessible, youth truth, especially since it's since it's anonymous.
Thank you.
Sure.
Diane, I think you answered this question for me already, but could the principals at the school divide the information by gender or by race? I feel like you answered this already, but
Youth truth can. There are multiple ways of them segregating. No, that's the wrong word. Disaggregating, not segregating. That's what we're trying to avoid. Disaggregating the data. Yeah,
Okay.
multiple ways. It's fascinating.
yeah, no,
And-
this is awesome. I also love the idea of like just writing, whether you share that or not, but just having teachers write like a short summary
Yeah.
of the students, not only as a reflection of the students' year or time at the school, but also as a reflection of the teacher. Like how much does the teacher know about the student? What was the relationship with the teacher, with the student? I mean, and just for them to, it's almost a good exercise for teachers to do that and be like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time with the student, almost no time with the student because the student was successful, right? He was succeeding in school, and therefore I allocated more time. So just like as for, I don't know if that's ever shared, but I find that fascinating too. So.
I didn't know she was doing it. So fancy.
Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Let's see. All right. So here we are with our data as well. We have several areas that we can see as highlights and a couple of areas where we've seen some significant decreases as well. So co-vitality is the universal screener that we use to measure students on social emotional well-being in all the different areas. And then we also have students take the Youth Truth survey as well. So you can see across the board, where we've seen improvements, specifically in the area of self-management. We see the largest increase. Interestingly enough, looking at the decreases in self-awareness, that 12% decrease in my school has services that can help me. Just to point out, this is not intended in any way to provide an excuse, but more to provide context. So the Youth Truth Survey has been given to Healdsburg Junior High School students 4 times since we started doing this as a district. The first time was 3 weeks into our first distance learning. The second time was in the middle of last year when we were still not back in school yet in January of last year. We gave it again in October of this year. And the results you see on Youth Truth are a comparison from October of this year to January of, this school year, not this calendar year. October of this school year compared to January of this school year. So just to provide that context, I can tell you that we didn't decrease any services between October and January, but it's interesting reflection. I think what is most important for me, if you want to go ahead, Debbie, well, actually, I forgot we have this one in here as well. So looking at this, our co-vitality numbers have stayed relatively flat. If you would say, there were 1% increase in those who said they were high thriving, moderately thriving, 2% decrease in students who said they were at high risk or inconsistent. So we see that there hasn't been significant change in this area. It's pretty statistically the same. And when we look at the Youth Truth data for whether students enjoy school, it's always sad to see that go down at all. Potentially a reflection of at the very beginning of the school year, very excited to be back. This is their first time in-person learning as a whole school for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then, and then we're kind of settled back into school and maybe not quite as enthusiastic when they were answering this in mid-January.
Can I ask just for clarification? Because
Yes,
I
sir.
saw this in the others. I'll just pick on one. Safe during school. That struck me, and it's sort of like, well, is that safe because of bullying? Is that safe because of what, or because I have to wear a mask and I'm worried about COVID, or do we know? I guess is my question.
It's a good question. If you look at the Youth Truth data, and have it broken down by individual questions that are grouped in
So
that
there's a
area,
bunch in there.
yeah, you can look at that. It's just the data. We could be here until the cows come home before we are able to look at every data point that's in there.
Okay, so it covers a wide range. And I guess to this point is looking at this, you and your team would be able to say, okay, this many kids are not feeling safe, in my words, because of COVID. I mean, we're
Sure.
scared. At school, I don't really feel safe. Maybe this small amount is because, Sally over there is always picking on me or whatever. I mean, but you can break it down that way and kind of look at that.
Yeah, and that's where some of the information from co-vitality is important as well, because that is data that we can look at on an individual student basis and see how they're responding as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so next steps. We're going to continue to have teachers provide in-class SEL lessons and build some community, do some community building activities around that. Our counselor will continue to make presentations to students about the services that are available. One of the things that we did, so our SEL curriculum is called YTRI. We realized a need for more training in this area. And so it's one of the things that we're already committed to when we return for next school year in August, that our professional development will include components for YTRI for all of our certificated staff for sure. And we're going to increase the amount of lessons that we will implement next year as well. So I think doing it for the first time, lacking a little bit of training, and maybe not being as comfortable with it, we maybe weren't as successful as we would have liked to be this year. But it's something that, the same teachers will be doing that again next year. And we'll have everyone with some training around this so that there's more comfortability. We're going to kind of look at the YTRI lessons as well as our data and try to comb out what are the lessons that are most pertinent to the areas of greatest concern, so that we can be more targeted and focused in our approach in that manner. We're going to continue our Team HJH days. So we did those at the beginning of the year. It becomes hard to maintain planning sessions once you get into the middle of the year, but we're working on developing a team for PBIS, and this would fall under that realm as well. We're going to look at utilizing our mental health counselor to help support students with individual and small groups for specific needs. There were some staffing changes sort of mid-year in that area. We'll have a new mental health counselor coming in. So we hope to be a lot more effective in that particular area with that service. Cost meetings are something that is new to us. This is where we sit and talk about students who have been identified for needing additional services as a team. So our school psychologist sits on that team, our counselor, mental health counselor, myself, and any outside resources like we have currently are contracted with SOS. Their counselor works with us as well. And the last one, so this was started this year. It is a sort of a panel of students. We're calling it our Students' Voices group. So we have a variety of students who are makeup. They don't necessarily know that they fit a particular demographic, but their demographics represent our school. So we have, we have students who are reclassified English fluent. We have students who are English only. We have students who are students with disabilities, students across all of our demographics in nearly the identical percentages that they represent the school as a whole. And what we do in that group, other than kind of setting norms to begin, is start to identify areas where students feel things are going well at school and they want to see more of those types of activities or lessons, etc., and areas where they feel that there can be some improvement. And it's interesting because you're talking with someone real. You're not looking at a data point. And students have been very open in talking and letting their opinions be felt. One of the norms is what gets shared in there. We're not going to give anyone's name and say, well, you were talking about this teacher and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been successful. We've kind of just got it started recently, but it's something that we will definitely continue into the following year. I think that's it for me, but I saw some furious writing over there, so I'm assuming some questions may be coming my way. No?
No, I was just learning everything. So.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the big kids. The really big kids, they're getting so big. The high schoolers are struggling. These have been teenagers that have been on their own, and it's been really, really stressful and hard for them. So our data, we're going to take it and own it. Not happy, about a lot of this data. And when we went to a staff meeting, just really shared, we're really sad and we have a lot of work to do and we have a lot of ownership to do. So when you look at where we are, we have some things that are going well and we have a lot of work to do. So highlighting, we have to watch on we're at 60% on self-awareness, 2% increase on persistence, 1% increase in CEST, a 6% increase in adults treating students with respect, and empathy is above 60%. So ongoing improvement, a 7% decrease in my school has services, and these questions are coming up. And so with my staff, what we're questioning is, what do they think services are? So we have some education to do to really make certain that our data is valid. 5% decrease, and I try to do my best in school. Why is that happening, or what's going on? And what's interesting that we have a pool party next week, so we're really excited. Where it's like, okay, we got to try hard, we got to work hard, and these are the what you have to do to earn it. And the kids are so excited. So we need to implement all year long things that they are so excited about. A pool party, the pool's right there, and it's so easy. So these are things that, and it's working. I had to meet with them. I said, you need to have these grades. I met with every single child potentially in the grade level that earned it for school pride and spirit points. The juniors won because they're spirit points all year long. And then I met with them and I gave them the parameters, and every single child that does not meet those requirements, because you have to have certain grades additionally, because that's very important. I met with them individually, and it's working. It's working, for some, okay, Ms. Jones-Kerr, I'm getting my grades up, I know by Monday, and parents are emailing me. And so whatever it takes, we got to have fun in school, but you also have to work hard. Decrease in, I create goals for my own learning, something to work on. Decrease in belonging, peer collaboration, and 7% decrease in I can usually be myself around others. Overall, thank you. Overall, 35% with high thriving went down 2%. Getting by went down 2%. High risk went up 4%. And enjoying school went down by 5%. And safe at school plateaued. So if you look at our actions, there's a few items on, is that mine? Yeah. Teachers continuing to provide SEL lessons, counselors to work on presentations, professional learning on the Y-Tri members, and creating a calming room. I'm really excited about creating this calming room. We find that students are stressed out, have anxiety or things going on, or maybe they're very upset. And so providing a special room, my plan is to do like a nice, some couches with some lamps and some magazines and coloring and essential oils, and just a little special place for them so that they feel safe, and then they can go back and learn, because when they're feeling that way, they're stressed out and they don't want to learn. School-wide team building day. Our first day of school, we're going to do team building where we're going to mix all the kids up. They're going to be 9 through 12. And we're not going to go straight into academics. We're just going to be and just work together as a team and have a really, really fun first day together. Additionally, we have, with our PD day, we do have some Y-Tri training that's coming our way for all staff, as well as specific 5 teachers that really are passionate about becoming further trained. And what I really envision that I think is going to work with my staff is, I believe these trainings need to be put together with our staff together as a whole for ownership. Our teachers, we're the day-to-day with our students, and we know them. And so I think it will be very, very powerful for my staff to come together and come up with, what is our plan? What do we think is going to work for our students, and implement that with fidelity, and coming up with, in every single section and every single course, what are we as a team going to do, and keep evaluating that and watching it. And something I'm really excited also, next year we formally have a leadership course that's coming back onto HHS, which I'm excited. This year it was a club. And we also want to take that student data and have the leadership students do something with that data. So we're really excited. We have great plans. We have a lot of work to do, but that's good, because I hope next year to come back and have great improvement, because we're excited and owning this, because we know we can do better and we want to for the kids. Any questions?
I'll just, I appreciate all the data. I appreciate your enthusiasm about the data, which, not none of it, but some of it's kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
But that's good, because I know that that's something that we can work on. And it's like, hey, we can celebrate that and continue to build on that. So I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Before you leave, I just want to thank you. I'm not going to let you go, but I do want to thank you for all the work that you've done, and the principals, all the work you've done, and please communicate with your teachers all the work that they've done. This is, I know, just the beginning, but it's a beginning that we began, a year ago, whatever, and we're beginning to make steps, and this is exciting. I mean, this is where we should be headed, and we're headed. So thank you all.
Sure.
I think we should also appreciate the students who diligently and truthfully are answering the questions and taking their class time to give their opinion. So that's great.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and now moving on to reports. Do we have a HEF report? All right, seeing none. Moving on to the HADA report. No HADA report. Saying none, CSEA report.
We do have a HADA report. Let me go ahead and allow Susie to talk. Just one moment. Did I say
CSEA?
CSEA? Sorry about that. Susie, just one moment.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm hoping that I'm not so loud as normal.
You're good, Susie. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. My report today is mainly on the...
Susie, excuse me, sit back about 6 inches from wherever you're talking.
Okay. I'm on a school Chromebook, believe that or not. I should have used my laptop. I just wanted to say I hope that there's some paraprofessionals in the audience. I can't really see them. It's really hard to talk about the eliminations of the 5 positions of paras, the parent outreach coordinator, the student advisor. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. I realize it's COVID funded and we were told ahead of time, but speaking to the paras, they are obviously want to keep their jobs, and hopefully they're not going to go out and look for other jobs and then we're going to lose them, because that would be horrible. But I think with COVID and everything that the children still need these paras in the classroom, working with them, helping them. I'm hoping that the test scores are going to show that it's been a big advantage to have them. And as far as the parent outreach coordinator that is so desperately needed at our site, I know it's not about a person, but Maria does an excellent job. And it would be really hard if we couldn't bring her back, because we need that. So I hope that you understand that, if there's any way to bring them back, that would be awesome. And, there's going to be some bumping going on, which is hard for people to lose their jobs, and for the people that have to bump that don't want to, because it's a really hard position. So I was kind of disappointed that was like the last item on the agenda for the paras who are there tonight, because that's a really long time for them to stay. But I also want to congratulate our CSEA retirees. I had something going on, so I wasn't there at 5:30. But congratulations to them for spending many, many, many years with the district, and now getting to enjoy their time off. Good luck to all of them, and thank you for celebrating them today. And I think that's about it.
Thank you, Susie. Student trustee, Annie Peterson.
Once again, as per last time, my printer is broken, so I'm going to read off my Chromebook. ASB elections are currently happening. Voting is going to happen Friday, which is exciting because then you'll know who your next student trustee is already by Friday. Graduation is also fast approaching. It is going to be June 10th at 7 p.m. at the high school. So obviously, I don't know if you guys will be there, but you're invited. Probably you'll be there. Today at 7 p.m., the varsity baseball team is competing at the first round of NCS, which is what Mr. V left for, at Rec Park against Middletown. So hopefully, I don't know how it's going, but hopefully it's going well.
Oh, Hounds up 3-1 after 2 innings.
Sweet.
what I
Well,
have.
that's
Yeah.
good.
That was 20 minutes ago, so it could.
Hopefully, it's
be
positive
at more.
outcome. And also, last week we had a Spirit Week, which is the last chance to win Spirit Points and a talent show. And Ms. Jones-Kerr talked about it earlier, but the juniors won, and now they get to have a pool party, which is super exciting. And so they're preparing for that. And that is the end of my report. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. We're going to miss you, Annie. Board of Trustees. Any trustee have reports they would like to share with us?
No report. I would like to say the first gen students at the high school had their graduation this past weekend too. So congratulations to all the students. Those are all students from Healdsburg High School, and they just had their graduation. So they're first gen students who are part of the
First gen,
professional
right.
program. Yes.
Any others?
I just wanted to note that the world famous Greyhound Band is going to be playing the national anthem at the Giants game on Wednesday. And I can say that the junior high school band member in our house is very, very excited about it. And we will be going down there to attend and watch. And I'm so excited and proud of everybody. It's going to be awesome.
That's great. If you can't go, watch on TV. I'm sure it's on TV.
I have video of my daughter playing saxophone when she was
Excellent.
at a Giants game when she was here.
I know they've worked very hard, so pretty exciting.
Any other reports? It is 8. Oh, excuse me, it's 3 minutes to 8. Let's meet at 8:05, please. Moving on to 11.1E, expanded learning opportunities for program plan. Director Fender, are you there?
I am. Can you guys hear me okay?
Back up about 4 inches from your
All right. How's that? Is that any better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the voice from afar. Again, thank you for allowing me to join in this way. So the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, not to be confused with the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant that you heard earlier last year. Probably a good idea to look at the cover sheet on this one. We don't have slides. So the ELOP is a non-competitive grant program from the CDE. All school districts are being offered this funding as long as you can meet the requirements. We thankfully have been partnering with the city of Healdsburg and their community service department for well over a decade to provide exactly what's called for in this new funding stream through our ACES program. So we're one of the lucky school districts that has had the after-school education and safety program funding. This is an expansion at the state level to try to include more school districts to provide after-school programming. I feel, again, I've said this before in other distance learning situations, that thankfully we were well ahead of the game and had ACES funding, have had a TK through grade 8 after school program, like I said, for over a decade. The part that is new for us and one of the requirements for accepting the funding is that we need to expand through the summer. So there's a minimum of 30 days of service that must be provided during non-school time. So that could be spring break, winter break, summer. And talking with the city of Healdsburg, they run a fairly robust summer camp program. And we will be partnering with them to use this funding to allow more students to participate in that program at either no or low cost. So we're doing a concerted effort through the summer school enrollment and other, targeting of families, particularly students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged and may not even think about going down to the community center for summer camp. And so the bulk of this funding will be used to expand our partnership for summer program for K through students who are rising into K through 6th grade. Not sure if Debbie can speak real quickly. She's been managing kind of the fiscal and the enrollment side of this. The last I understood, it was going fairly smoothly. Debbie, did you want to say anything?
I've been working closely with the city, and so far, all of the students that have enrolled, we've been able to identify, and they'll all be going in with no cost at this point. And we're over 30 students at this point. We're hoping to get more.
So, like I said, this document that you see, it's quite lengthy. It mirrors what was approved this time last year for our ACES funding. This is not something new to HUSD in partnership with the city of Healdsburg, other than the expansion to the summer program of a minimum of 30 days. And like I said, the majority of that funding there will be used to provide that opportunity. So this is a discussion, and we would like to bring this back as an action item on the next board agenda. Any questions?
It's very thorough, but you know that. I'm looking at all the pieces of it, and like, wow, kids get to do all this. That's great, and I appreciate your time and energy going into this and coming to fruition. We hope we get more kids. Is there a maximum number of kids?
No, not really. The city of Healdsburg, they really are the ones who should be commended for this, and Debbie and her office working out the fiscal aspect of it. We are just so lucky to have a wonderful community services program. I know that they're working directly with Cotazone Healdsburg to get the word out. So we should be able to accommodate the students that would like to take advantage of this as we do during the school year. Again, we're one of the lucky school districts that we don't have a waiting list for our after school program. If students need care in a safe environment that helps them get their homework done and brings enrichment activities, STEM, garden, and whatnot, we target, like I said, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, but thankfully any student in K-8 is served after school, and we're fairly certain that any student who wants to take advantage of the summer program at the city would be able to as well.
Sure. That's great.
I was just going to add, thank you for coordinating with the city, because these are really powerful programs and we work together.
Absolutely.
And I know it was a challenge to, just to hit all the parameters of this. So it's really cool that you guys were able to do it, because I know that took a lot of coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to F, Healdsburg High School new course outline proposal for 2022-23.
So we have this labeled as a new course outline because we'll be bringing it forward to the UC for A to G approval. It's really an updating of the journalism course that's been in existence for decades at the high school. Broadcast journalism, new media, right? The times are a-changing, as it says in the cover sheet. The majority of information is now communicated through some sort of broadcast or digital platform, even text format, such as social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. So this is allowing us to kind of up our game and meet the industry where it's at. Thankfully, we have a very willing teacher, Mr. Chevalier. He was a little worried about not coming tonight, and he is at a softball game for his own child. So presenting this on behalf of Mr. Chevalier, who co-wrote this course outline with the help of Derek Corsino, the CTE department chair. This is really, like I said, moving us into the modern day of what new media and journalism is. Students would be able to get art credit for this if they needed art credit, or they could also take CTE credit if they needed CTE credit. So this course can serve a dual purpose. It can't be they can't knock off 20 units of both visual and performing art and CTE, but where they need coursework, either CTE or VPA. So it expands, excuse me, our offerings in the world of art. So super excited about what this is going to bring in terms of our social media presence. Mr. Chevalier is very committed to using this course in partnership with the superintendent's office and also our leadership class to do a better job of telling our story on social media. And so we're going to see an improvement at the district level and at the high school level in terms of telling our story on social media. So that will be an important element of this. I think it's important to note too that we're sensitive that there are students that enjoy the written word of journalism. They enjoy the printed page, and they will find a place in this course. All media has writing to it, right? So if you enjoy writing the copy, if you enjoy being kind of the behind the scenes, making sure that the story is coherent, cogent, is written out, there's good questions, good story, students certainly would be encouraged that are more comfortable in that more traditional written format of journalism. So we want to make sure that we don't lose that piece as well. So again, this is a first reading, and we would like to bring this back for approval in the next board meeting. Any questions or comments?
Erin, this is Donna. I know I'd heard this when John was talking about it at the governance council meeting for the high school, and it just dawned on me though. So I know John's got all the experience with the media. Is there any sort of an advising teacher or involved teacher who can help with the writing side, with the content side, with the kind of more traditional journalism side?
Yeah, John's had a couple of conversations with teachers that have taught this before. There is interest to have a journalism club. And so that would be an element that could feed this course. The course would be dependent on the club. The student wouldn't have to be a part of the journalism club to participate in the new media. It is something that we're sensitive to, as is John, and talking to his colleagues, in order to make sure that those students are fully supported. And so one of the beautiful things about our CTE department is their interest in interdisciplinary projects. And so we believe that there may be, I'm not going to lie, John is not an expert in the written word. Right? It's not, he does not hold an English credential. But we do hope that there may be some type of formal collaboration between the journalism club and or the English department. And this goes to kind of telling our story, right? We know we can do a better job of leveraging student voice and choice. And if they have a place to put that product that's coming out of their English class, for example, they may be more inclined to do a good job. So those are some of the conversations we're having as we transition this course.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
My only comment is it's very thorough. This is, I don't know, exciting, I guess is the word. It's like, this is just really cool. Thank you. And moving on to G, Healdsburg High School Advanced Placement U.S. History Textbook Adoption.
This is a very exciting development. Advanced Placement U.S. History. Mr. Worf has been the longtime teacher of this. He is the current department chair and a very active member of our Ethnic Studies Institutes. He is also the advisor of our youth-led Ethnic Studies Club. Mr. Worf, if you look at this paperwork that he put together, came to me, it's dated, back gave this to me at the beginning of the school year, and said, Erin, the test changed, the AP test changed. The students will be taking a new version of the test, or just did actually last week. And he said, we need a new textbook, both to honor the work that we're doing, to be a more equity-minded, socially just, anti-racist educational program. But the test has also changed. And so, in all honesty, we were pretty far through the budgeting process. And I had some good conversations with Mr. Worf about, let's learn some more in ethnic studies. Let's make sure that something that's going to cost the district, $4,000 is the right one, right? We don't want to buy a text and realize in 6 months that we should have gotten something different. So we feel very confident in this choice. Mr. Worf has been patient. And like I said, this helps us move our greater work of being an equity focused and anti-racist educational program. So when we do this in advanced placement, I think it really says something to the students and our families about our commitment. This is a college level course, and making sure that the text that we're using reflects all of our students in the U.S. history that often goes untold through, some of our more marginalized populations, I think is a really important thing. So I am more than thrilled to bring this forward to you. And it's time. It's over time. Any questions or comments?
I'm ready to vote now, but it's just a discussion.
It's a discussion, right? All right, moving on to H, the Healdsburg High School Advanced Placement English Language Textbook Adoption.
In similar vein, this was brought to me by Mr. Ben Gunter, who's been teaching the 11th grade AP English course for a number of years. He came to me mid-year and said, I've been talking to my colleagues. And again, the AP test itself has changed. And so Mr. Gunter went on the hunt. If you could see this book, I encourage you. I have it in my office, as does Mr. Gunter. It is a beautiful book. There is rich online material that our students and teacher will have access to. It really, again, honors a much more diverse storytelling, a much more diverse population of students than we have seen in previous iterations of this AP course. So, echo much of what I said about the U.S. history. So these are both books that our 11th graders will be using. So pretty massive change in AP U.S. history and AP English for 11th graders starting next year.
My notes on my agenda here is, can I get a copy?
I'll see to it.
Okay, I'm serious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you again. This is good stuff. Very good stuff. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 11.1I, Healdsburg High School novel, The Distance Between Us. And before you do this, can I get a copy? Go ahead, please. I'm serious. I want it.
Absolutely. I will charge you for it, though.
And that's fine.
Yep.
Mike, I have it. You can borrow it.
Yeah, there we go.
As it says in the cover sheet, in 2018, HUSD adopted StudySync for grades 6 through 11. With StudySync, there are a number of texts that are made available to us. And when we chose the texts that we would make as part of our core novel selection, and what I mean by core novel selection is that all students will read this book in this grade. This is not a choice book. This is not a book that is part of, we often do lit circles or reading circles where students do, if we're teaching, I'm trying to think about a good example. My mind's a little scrambled, but, for teaching heroes, right? There are many different books that can teach heroes and author's voice. This book, The Distance Between Us, is not a part of Study Sync. And so I felt obliged to bring it to the board because we would like to use it as a core novel, meaning that all 11th graders would read this as a class together. Generally, books that are in Study Sync, we don't bring them to you one by one because they're part of our comprehensive curriculum and they've been vetted through the CDE and through the curriculum provider. This is a very important book. It's written by a young Latina. It's her story of crossing the border and then what comes after. I encourage all of us to read it. And you can see there's a curriculum guide that goes along with this, where the point of this book is that students practice refining their abilities as readers and writers to evaluate this author and use rhetorical strategies. So this is not us telling her story, it's herself telling her story through memoir, and then students writing argumentatively about what they think and a turning point. So again, this allows students to understand this book from their own positionality and from their own story, but also taking some empathy and understanding through a memoir book. So we will desire to buy this book for all 11th graders starting next year, both AP and English, College Prep 11. So every 11th grader would read this text, with the guidance of their teacher. So we'd like to, again, as the other books, bring this forward for consent next board meeting.
This is an incredible book. Reina Grande is an incredible author, and I think she's able to she resonated with me. Her story resonated with me, so I'm just assuming her story is going to resonate with a lot of our students. And it's just a story of success and resiliency and hardships and everything that I think our students have experienced during COVID in a different way. And so I'm excited for everyone to read this book. And it was a book at Santa Rosa Junior College that was actually designated for a full semester for English professors to focus on and choose as a book. So she's an incredible author.
So you would strongly recommend that every board member read this?
Yeah, strongly. Yeah, it's an incredible book.
All right, we'll try and make that happen. All right, that's great. Thank you again, Erin.
Thank you.
11.2, business. Emergency circumstance, Assembly Bill 361. This is so we can stay compliant should we need to go to teleconferencing. This is an action item.
I move that we approve the review emergency circumstances for another month.
And I'll second.
Comments, questions? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Carries 5-0. 11.2B. Personnel declaration of a need for 2022. You're there.
I'm here. All right, so I bring this item to you all every May, pretty much. Sometimes it comes in June. We are required actually to bring it prior to the present school year ending, looking towards the school year ahead. And it basically is a way for us to just kind of prognosticate for the CTC what positions we might feel are harder to fill, and we might, as a district, need to hire someone on an emergency credential or some type of limited assignment permit. So I bring it forward every year. It's pretty much the same document. There are a couple different pieces on there than normal. One you would possibly notice ag sciences. We do have one of our ag teachers going out on maternity leave in the fall. And so we're anticipating we might possibly need to have someone, that's on an intern credential or, doesn't have their full ag sciences credential yet to take over her classes. And then we have a new hire for our junior high social science position, who is still in the process of finishing the authorization for social science. He's credentialed in another area, so that's kind of why those look a little different than usual.
Any questions? We have a motion. Would somebody like to?
I'll motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. 11.3B, consideration resolution 2222, reduction or elimination of certain positions in the classified services.
Yes. So what you have before you, I do want to say, if Susie, if you're still listening, I totally concur, just speaking from a personal perspective. I totally concur with everything Susie is saying, as does the superintendent as well. Not to speak for him, but what we're bringing forward with these positions, these are what are considered specially funded positions. And so these have been funded through the temporary COVID dollars. And so unfortunately, we are looking for right now, at least, at not being able to move forward with these positions in the fall. That being said, there will be the normal process of looking at our seniority list and all the following steps after this, like to find locations, hopefully for as many positions for as many people as we can, to make the impact as small as possible, and everyone will be treated as humanly as possible and in the process. And I do appreciate people in the audience staying through to the end for this. It is a difficult thing. Every time I have to bring an item like this forward, it's very difficult. But we need to maintain the fiscal solvency of the district. And as we know that there are funds available for some of these things, we definitely already are working on prioritizing what we can bring back and as how quickly we can do that. So I know Debbie and Chris will work really closely together with the budget, moving forward. So thank you for letting me speak to all that.
Okay, and we do have a request to speak from Mr. Ortega, I believe.
Yeah.
Please come to the microphone.
Can you hear me? Perfect. My printer was also broken, so I got to read off my phone. My name is Angel Ortega, and I am a paraprofessional at Healdsburg High School, providing support to our newcomer students from Central America. I'm speaking in regards to the recommendation to cut several paraprofessional positions, and since I'm a really recent hire, I know I'm most likely going to be affected. So I'd like to take a moment to fill you in on the necessity of my position and what these students will go through should the position no longer be available. I won't get into the specifics of what our newcomers have endured, but to say that they've had hard lives is an understatement. Assimilating in a new school is hard enough. To assimilate in a new country is a mountainous obstacle. Not to mention, a few of our newcomers are trying to learn English as their third language, with their indigenous dialect and Spanish being their first two languages, respectively. Excuse me. I can't solve or hold their hand through all the systemic barriers that they will face while living in this country. But what I can do is at least bridge the gap between student and teacher as I help them navigate through high school. Without the additional support that the paraprofessional for newcomers brings, our students will be left in a detrimental disadvantage. Of course, we have a handful of teachers and administrators that are bilingual, but our bilingual colleagues can only do so much as they have their own responsibilities and can't be spread thin. They can't spend every single day in the classroom assisting the newcomers, whereas a paraprofessional can do that work. I love working with our newcomers. I love working at Healdsburg High School. Without any language support, our newcomers will fall through the cracks and be given a severe disservice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to make a comment, if I may, or if there's any other, well, I'm going to make a comment. And I think we all agree that these positions are essential, that they benefit our kids. As Franny said, the temporary funding of COVID has put us in a position where we need to look at our budget. We need to see what we can do. And because of the timing, we have to, by law, notify people that at this point we don't have the budget for. Please know that I, at least one board member, I'll let the others speak for themselves, encourage, have actually spoken with the superintendent about continue looking for funding sources so we can continue to fill these important positions. This is not easy. I've been in Franny's position, and this is probably one of the hardest things to do because we want you to be here. And please, Mr. Ortega, please know we want you to be here. That said, I'll listen to any other comments.
No, I mean, agreed.
No,
This is
that's fine.
purely financial situation. And again, hopefully we can revisit this and get most of these things back in place as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'd have to second what Anna just said and what Mike just mentioned too. It's a bummer. This process is, to me, I mean, we're talking about human dignity, and I understand this is a process that we have to go through to follow the law and to ensure our own end, but it's not okay for the individuals who don't know whether or not they're going to have a job next school year, right? And even to be offered a job after it's after they've been told that they might be let go and have to go through that process year 3 years, it's hard, and I apologize on behalf of this really poorly planned process that we have to go through.
And I would also like to apologize to, in this case, Mr. Ortega and others for me not putting this way earlier so you didn't have to sit through the whole board meeting. Sorry about that. Please accept my apology. I should have known better. I'm sorry. Okay, that said, I will make a motion for the consideration of resolution number 2222, reduction or elimination of certain positions in the classified services for 2022-2023.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. No, it's an action. Oh, it's a resolution.
Roll call vote.
Thank you. Thank you,
We'll start
Trustee
with
Del Rey. Exactly.
Start with
Could you remind us of when we would revisit this again?
Basically, we have to provide 60 days notice, right?
No, we have to do it by May 15th.
Well, no, that's the other.
Classified. The new laws.
No, this is specially funded positions, so it follows the.
You're right.
Yeah, no worries, no
Of
worries.
course you
I
are.
know they threw us that monkey wrench with the other stuff. No, with the specially funded positions, it follows the regular classified layoff process where we have to provide 60 days notice. So basically, we try to provide people notice, obviously, before we end this school year, right? Before they leave for the summer. My communication to the folks that are possibly impacted, what I have been communicating with them when they reach out is that, Debbie has to get through our budget process with our final budget. There are other things that come in over the summer, and funding will have to be looked at. And I know in my conversations with the superintendent, like some of these things may be able to come back, you know, earlier, if possible, but some of them we may not know, you know, for a little while. So that's why we need to take a serious look at things that might be possible for people to displace to as much as possible, so that we can hopefully not lose good people. So, yeah. Hopefully that answered. I mean, it's basically like over the summer and into the very early of the school year.
Would it be safe to say that we are interested in making decisions or resolving things as soon as possible?
Oh, yes.
Right. So that everybody knows what's going on as soon as possible. Yeah.
Yes.
This is probably a dumb question, but I'm like the least educated person here, so I'm going to ask it. What are the implications of failing? Like, is this like a symbolic thing that it's going to happen either way and we're just voting on it to say that we like acknowledge it? Or is there like any other?
No, it's not a dumb question, Annie. So what happens is because of the education code and the law, like has been referred to, we have to provide this 60 days notice, you know, of the elimination of a person's position. And then we have to go through a fairly complicated process of explaining to each individual person what they may have rights to displace into, previous classifications, things like that. But at any time, if the budget is in a place where any of these positions can be returned, then it's a matter of basically notifying people of a rescission of that layoff. So it's a decision that we do have to make right now because of the 60-day notice. But then, you know, even it's happened for me in other districts where I've been in, where even, you know, not too long after providing that notice, you're able to, you know, go back to the folks and say, you know, we're able to rescind this. So like Donna has spoke to, we want to try and do any of that as quickly as we can when it's possible. You're welcome.
Roll call. Okay, so Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez. Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
President Potmusel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, any reports from the trustees, comments, or requests for information? Okay, seeing none.
I would just like to add one thing. I added a new calendar on your.
Well, yes, thank you.
There was some revisions, and I added a few things to it.
To this one.
To this one, the highlights. Okay. There's a spring band concert this weekend that I just found out about.
Is that actually part of the festival or just happens to be in the plaza?
I don't know. I just found out. I just received an email that there's a spring band.
It's not on the plaza.
It's not on the plaza. It's in the farmer's market.
So confused. And I will tell you that Chris just texted me 2 minutes ago and said the Hounds won 3-1.
Awesome.
That is huge. So there
Thank
you
you.
go.
Oh, can I say something actually?
Please do.
This is our last meeting before the end of the school year, so I really just want to say thank you to everybody who worked so hard. This is our first year back, you know, in person learning all year, and I know that it's been incredibly difficult and had so many challenges for staff and teachers and administrators and for all the students. And I just have to say from my side, I feel a lot of relief that everybody continued to learn, that we had some awesome social experiences, that life, you know, continued to go on post distance learning lockdown period. It was a Herculean effort, and as one of the families of this district, we just really appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. And goodbye, Ann. Did you want to say something?
Karen, will you send information about the more detailed information about the 2 graduations and what time we arrive?
Yes.
And
Yes.
usually the usually the president, and I mean, if you can, does the junior high, and anyone else who can go. It isn't quite as.
Yes, I'll give you all that information soon.
Thank you.
And I will give you actually invitations to the graduation. I just haven't received
wow.
them yet.
I'm less concerned about the formal invitation, just where we're supposed to be.
Yes, I will get you all that information. Yes. Thank you.
Woo! We get to give Annie a big hug.
Okay, and goodbye, Annie. We are adjourned.